rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. And my green screen's a little off kilter here. There we go. All right. Oh, my goodness. Folks, I got to tell you, Trump has put forth his America First policies. America First. And he is making it clear throughout the world that America will be first in all actions. But also, too, he had a couple other things that came through with regards to just a disastrous speech or prayer breakfast speech making. I'm going to call her a moron. I'm sorry. I just am. That happened, I guess it was yesterday. But anyway, I got something on that for you. And, Elise Stefanik, man, she did a really good job in her, I think it's her confirmation hearings. I've got a couple of videos to play with that and, to play for that. But first, let's go ahead and kick this off with the Pledge of Allegiance as soon as I can find my freaking cursor. There it is. Let's go ahead and kick this off with the Pledge of Allegiance done by our very own Buddy Weiser over on Rumble. And let's go ahead and just let Buddy take it away in his style. So if you are of mind, please remove your please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and place your hand over your heart, and let's follow along with Buddy as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
All right. Thank you, Buddy, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style. Take that recording, whether it's audio, video, both, whatever. Take that file that's generated and attach it to an email. That email that you're going to send it off to is fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. Now, of course, tonight is...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right. It is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And for tonight's Whiskey Wednesday, I am drinking the Knob Creek Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 9 years aged. And because it is Wednesday, I am drinking it out of the TGRN True Grit Roots Network glass with, of course, the stones. As 3 Chevy says, it takes stones to drink with whiskey. He's even modified it. It's now it takes cold stones to drink with whiskey. But there you go. All right. Requisite first drink. Well, it's a good thing that we're starting off with TGRN True Grit Roots Network because of the fact... And I got to find the right button to push, because of the fact that True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues, is actually no more. That's right. I need to update the logo and everything else. This is the new announcement. TGRN next week TGRN Blues will change over starting Monday to some new programming and new show slots and things like that for everybody. Have you ever heard of a man named Walter Trout? He is a blues rock icon. Walter Trout is going to be our signature blues headline channel moving forward. That is Walter Trout Blues Radio, WTBR. Don't worry, TGRN is still in command and control, but Walter Trout Blues Radio is going to be the channel come Monday. That is the announcement. You need to head on over to tgrn.net and check out the video that our CEO, Jonathan Oogie Richards, went ahead and put together to explain what is happening and why. Also, too, you can see our press release there as well. So head on over to tgrn.net. That's tgrn.net. And you can check out the immediate press release of that. And starting on Monday the 27th is our new programming. So go and check us out, tgrn.net. Also, too, you can download our app right there. They have a couple of links, or you can listen right through your browser. Or if you already have the iHeartRadio app, Live 365 app, or the what was the other one? Oh yeah, Odyssey, AUDACY app. You can listen to all three. Or you can listen to us on one of those three by searching up TGRN Blues in the catalog of digital radio stations. That's right, Walter Trout Blues Radio, starting Monday, January 27th. Exclusively on True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues, based out of Austin, Texas. That's the announcement, folks. That is the announcement. I told you it was coming. It was coming in January. We hit it just under the wire. That's just the way things roll around here. We kind of do things a little late sometimes, but there you go. All right. So, let's see. Oh, I forgot to mention, too, I have a great new submission for Pet of the Week tonight, so you're going to want to hang on to the end of the show for that. All right. So, the other day, no, Mark, you can listen to TGRN. Go ahead and listen to TGRN. Mark was mentioning, and he popped down on Rumble, and he goes, dang, I was thinking about listening to TGRN, but I guess I'm $1 late and a day short. No, you're not. No, it's still TGRN. TGRN Blues is our channel. We also, too, don't forget, in the spring, we're planning on launching our Outlaw Country channel. So there'll be another headliner for that, but I'm not going to necessarily tell you who that is until we get closer. So anyway, yesterday there was a pastor. And keep in mind, there was a woman, Bishop Miriam Buttle. Okay. The inaugural prayer service, which is the prayer breakfast, I guess is what it's called. But anyway, she was the person who was brought forth to perform the prayer at the prayer breakfast. And let's just say, whoever vetted her probably didn't do a very good job. I mean, as far as like knowing what she was going to do. Now, first of all, I'm just going to tell you, I am a fairly biblical person, okay? And so I generally look to the Bible to decide, what God wants for us, all right? The thing about it is that the Bible specifically states that women are not supposed to be bishops. Women are not supposed to be pastors. Women are not supposed to be leading a church. That is pretty clear from the Bible. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a lot in the Bible that, for whatever reason, modern man has decided to just skip over, okay, and decided to twist and turn into something different. But all of that being said, and I do understand, I do understand, that just because a church doesn't necessarily prescribe or follow the Bible, that's, that's unfortunate, believe me, because the Bible is God's word, at least in my belief. But the thing about it is that she's had all kinds of videos and stuff. If you just look her up on social media, as Nana of JJS points out, Trump's advance team should have done a simple social media search on her and stopped him from being there. So here's the thing. She decided to take her pulpit and lecture Donald Trump from that pulpit. And it wasn't pretty. And in fact, if you look at like Donald Trump's face and JD Vance's face, and they're like in the front row, right there in the front row. And let's just say that it didn't look pretty for it. And here you can kind of see, we're going to go ahead and just listen to the short clip here that they have in this article. So.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
I think you can kind of take a look at that photo right there. I pause it. Look at these two. They're like looking at each other like, what the hell? Like, where in the heck did this person come from? And why are they up there lecturing? Okay, look, all politics aside, you want to sit there and talk about the politics of it? Great. Your timing sucks. And whatever faith that you are prescribing yourself to, this is not this is not the appropriate, pardon the pun, pulpit for making those kinds of statements. I mean, this was a disaster. And you can look at even like the pictures of the faces even behind Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Everybody was just kind of sitting there going, wait, what? What? But no, and even if you noticed at one point, J.D. Vance leaned over to his wife and like made a comment and was like, what the heck is this? Melania's irritated too. And again, whether you believe in what she was saying is true, but the point is you don't do this. I mean, this is kind of like the whole idea of realistically kneeling for the national anthem at the National Football League in front of, soldiers and people who have, had, when they, the NFL often brings service members that have been hurt in war and so on and so forth. And I can't even imagine sitting there looking at this. I just can't. I can't imagine this entire situation and the way that you're supposed to pray for the president, not make a political speech. Anyway. So, that's anyway. So Trump apparently, responded, because he was asked a question, I suppose, on this. And here's he posted on Truth Social, with regards to it. And, let me see if I can bring let's open this and boom, let's go take a look. Oops. Let's close. No, close that. All right. Here's what Trump said on Truth Social. So the mean tweets are back, folks. Here it is. The so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left, hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone, not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal migrants, I say aliens, that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It is a giant crime wave that is taking place in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very boring and an uninspiring one. She's not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. So, it's just a bit of a problem when you do stuff like this. It really is. I mean, again, if you believe this, great, whatever. But honestly, I got to tell you, this is not the appropriate place nor time in terms of being at the prayer breakfast to call that kind of stuff out. I mean, there's a lot of things that I could tell you that the left in particular tends to eulogize on with regards to the Bible and sin and all types of things that just a short, even just a short web search can find what the Bible actually says about all of these things. And that's just... Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that you could go on about the left. The left doesn't care about the Bible because the left doesn't believe in the Bible. And, so anyway, very poor choice as far as that goes. All right, well, my Rumblers were pointing this out, so I figured I'd bring this up. They were pointing this out last night, so I figured I'd bring this up here in Blaze Media. Of course, Mike Lee confirms that despite Trump's pardon, many January 6ers are prisoners and they are remaining in jail. So he pardoned the 1,500, and it looks as if there's only 2 individuals, at least at the writing of this article, which was yesterday, the writing of this article that have actually been released from the D.C. prisons. Glenn Beck spoke with Senator Mike Lee about this apparent resistance to Trump's orders. And by the way, this isn't single. This isn't singular in nature. There's a lot of people who are trying to fight Trump's orders. I told you about that last night in terms of his orders ending birthright citizenship. So, yeah. Anyway, according to Senator Lee, that is in particular, that's true. Now, Glenn reads a recent tweet from Lee, and by recent, I mean it was yesterday, I believe. But it says, this is Mike Lee, is DC ignoring Trump's pardons? If this is, then it's definitely time to repeal DC home rule. DC's government has no right to exist constitutionally. Congress shouldn't have delegated its lawmaking authority over DC. Time to take it back. And he says, see Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, which is exactly true. Congress has usurped the Constitution and handed over its authority to so many different organizations. For an example, one of the things that Congress is supposed to do is collect taxes, according to the Constitution. And the Constitution basically says that that's Congress's job, one of the main ones, by the way, to lay and collect being the term, taxes. But they went ahead and created the Internal Revenue Service, and that's what Congress is using. Congress has given away most of its responsibilities to unconstitutional organizations. Okay? And that is essentially the problem that we have right now, is the fact that we have so many unconstitutional actions going on in this country that I don't know if Donald Trump is going to be able to do it all himself to bring all of this stuff back into order. Now, Lee says, quote, what this means is that Congress needs to do its job. We've had a problem for a long time with Congress delegating its lawmaking power to unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. We're supposed to be the lawmaker for the District of Columbia. We've been delegating that power to the DC government for about a half century. The results have been disastrous. He went on and said, last night, from what we can tell, after Trump issued pardons for a number of prisoners involved with January 6th, there were only 2 released last night, he told Glenn, adding that the D.C. jail officials actually announced that they wouldn't be releasing anymore. Such an act of defiance is unacceptable, says Senator Lee. They have names and they have pardons. They can identify those prisoners who have been pardoned. Joe Hanneman, who has covered the struggles of the January 6th defendants at length for the Blaze News, claimed that the D.C. jail quote, often operates like a banana republic lockup, and called for an executive branch investigation of the tortures that went on under those roofs over the past 4 years. Trump was clear. These prisoners were to be released immediately, so why haven't they been? Well, Senator Lee says that they're working on figuring out what is exactly causing the delay. But one thing is abundantly clear, according to him. It's yet another reason to revisit DC's home rule. Senator Lee aims to have it repealed entirely, and it actually should. I mean, let's be honest. It really should. DC, and this is part of the calls for statehood, too. I just want to point this out. Everybody on the left is like, hey, we need to make DC a state. No, we don't. Okay? We don't need to make D.C. a state. D.C. is set up constitutionally as a district for a reason. And that reason, historically speaking, was because the founding fathers did not want one state to have the federal seat of power within it. They created the district in order to create a neutral ground. In fact, they pulled land from the 3 states that surround DC in order to make sure that not any one state had a perceived foothold in the federal government over any other. That was the whole point. And they handed that control over to Congress for that purpose. Okay? That's what they did. They did that because, again, the founders wanted to make everything as fair as they possibly could. And to have the federal seat of power sitting in one state was unconscionable for them. Okay? It was unconscionable for them. We have gone so far off the rails from where the founding fathers wanted this country to be. It's sad. And what's even more sad is the number of people who don't know, because they haven't been told the true facts of what our country is supposed to be and what our country is supposed to have in terms of its government. So, therefore, I agree with Mike Lee. We need to get rid of that. We need to get back to the original Constitution. And again, I'm a strict constitutionalist. We need to get back to the strict Constitution and get back to where we are supposed to be. That's part of the reason why I keep pushing the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment, which is, to me, one of the strongest of all the amendments, especially when it comes to reining in government power. All right. Well, Donald Trump has said his message. He said it before he was elected, and he is now putting the proof to his message, which is America first. Americans first. And he has done it in a policy, in all of his policies. If you look at his policies and his direction, his all of the things that he is talking about, and is implementing policies that are putting America first. One of the things that he is warning American cities. He's warning American cities right now, and he's putting them on alert, especially the sanctuary ones. Here in the populous times, President Trump put sanctuary cities on alert over illegal, they keep saying immigration, just say it, over illegal aliens. Okay? Illegal aliens. Anyway, President Trump put sanctuary cities on alert that he was going to implement his campaign to pledge to deport illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, from the country. Several deep blue cities are rushing to Trump-proof their sanctuary ordinances to effectively protect unlawful entrants from deportation. Now, I'm trying to figure out how that could be the case because of the fact that immigration law and immigration itself constitutionally is sitting in the hands of the federal government. There is no other question that immigration law, the rules regarding immigration, that all sits at the feet of the federal government. That is one of the few things that we actually have that is completely within the federal government's purview. So, anyway, what we're talking about here, of course, Tom Homan said back in 2024 that he threatened the Chicago mayor, for example, with prosecution if he impeded deportations or harbored or concealed illegal aliens. Chicago by itself was the target of Trump's post-inauguration raids to apprehend dangerous illegal aliens before details leaked out. Nonetheless, Homan confirmed that the raids would proceed following a different plan. Denver, Colorado Mayor Mike Johnston also said that he was willing to participate in civil disobedience. He threatened to send Denver police officers to stop the feds from deporting illegal aliens, and said that he did not mind going to jail. In fact, his quote was, "More than us having DPD," that's Denver Police Department, stationed at the county line to keep them out, you would have 50,000 Denverites there," Johnson told, I guess the outlet was Denverite. He said, "It's like the Tiananmen Square moment with the rose and the gun, right? You'd have every one of those Highland moms who came out for the migrants, and you do not want to mess with them." Now, you and I all know, and we have talked about this, okay? But you and I all know that the Denver Police Department, which is a city police department, is not and cannot overrule the county sheriff. County sheriff is the highest elected law enforcement officer in that county. And so I don't know what county Denver is in, but if they had a true constitutional sheriff who had the balls, he could look at the Denver Police Department and say, "You know what? You're done. You get out of here. Everybody's fired. You're out of here." Just like a sheriff can actually arrest a governor of a state, because the sheriff has the most law power, according to long time upheld common law all the way back to England. You remember that conversation that we were talking about on the program. The sheriff is the lawmaking authority in the county. So he later, meaning Johnston, later retracted his statement about that and advocated actually for negotiating with reasonable people on how to solve hard problems. I have a feeling he had a lawyer friend of his go, "Hey, dude, you just screwed up. You just screwed up." Oh, and 3 Chevy just told me Denver is the name of the city and the name of the county. Well, yeah, he's a mayor. The Mike Johnston is a mayor. Denver County Sheriff could arrest him without a problem, because the sheriff runs the county, folks. And that's been upheld, by the way, all the way up to the Supreme Court. I told you all about that with Sheriff Richard Mack. Richard Mack, actually, the Supreme Court actually upheld that Sheriff Richard Mack actually even overruled the federal government when it came to universal background checks when it was first implemented. That case went all the way to the Supreme Court, if you remember that. So there you go. One thing, Woodens actually points this out, or he kind of asks this question, Sheriff Behan versus U.S. Marshal Wyatt Earp. So here's the thing about the U.S. Marshal Service, okay? The U.S. Marshal Service is a it's under the Supreme Court. It's under the court system. Okay. The U.S. Marshals are under the third branch, the judicial branch. They are not part of the executive branch, which would be the law enforcement arm of the government. They are under the judicial branch, and they are primarily tasked with things like fugitive recovery and those kinds of things. So yeah, that's it. It's totally, it's a different organization. And actually too, by the way, the U.S. Marshals are the only recognized law officers as a part of the Constitution. The constitutional sheriff or the sheriff goes back predating the Constitution, but the U.S. Marshal Service is essentially one of the oldest. It even predates and outdates the FBI. So even the FBI doesn't have the same jurisdictional rights as the U.S. Marshal. So yeah. Anyway, so back to this story here that I'm looking at. Johnston told an NBC affiliate, 9 News, a local affiliate, he said, would I have taken it back if I could, which was his statement that he put. He said, yes, I probably wouldn't have used that image, meaning the image of the Tiananmen Square. So the Denver mayor, continuing, said that immigration status shouldn't discourage someone from taking their kid to get health care, taking their kid to go to school, or driving themselves to work. Actually, yeah, that should discourage them. Okay? That should discourage them because of the fact that immigration status, if you're here illegally, you're a criminal. That's why I always laugh whenever I hear the left talk about, oh, no, I mean, just because they're here undocumented, that doesn't mean that they're criminals. Hello, they're criminals. They cross the freaking border illegally. That is, by definition, a criminal act. And in the Immigration and Naturalization Act, it states that's a criminal act and that by crossing that border, they are to be deported. Yeah. So anyway, President Trump, of course, is not playing softball with these people. He has, during his inaugural address, President Trump promised to kickstart the operation by halting all illegal entry into the country before embarking on a forceful removal of felon illegal aliens. So he's starting with the felons. Okay. He's starting with the felons, and then he's going to work his way down. So he's already signed the executive order declaring the emergency at the southern border and designated Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations. Kind of talked a little bit about that last night. So, anyway. Yeah. So there you go. It's going to be a fight. Again, we're dealing with a president who is boldly challenging the status quo. He's boldly challenging the status quo. And, yeah. Well, folks, moving on from our domestic agenda, we have some reactions out of some of the world leaders on some of President Trump's actions as he has re-entered the White House. If you recall, he mentioned in his inauguration address that he wanted to bring back the Panama Canal into American control. He didn't make that any kind of a, shall we say, secret during his campaign. But the Panamanian president has already basically responded and said, yeah, no, you guys aren't taking that back. That's ours. Well, it shouldn't have been given over by Carter in the first place. All right. It shouldn't have. But Carter did it. And Reagan, of course, criticized him for it during the campaign. Panama is trying to say, by the way, that China does not operate the Panama Canal. Although it's kind of interesting how China has strategically placed at both ends a presence in both of those places. So, Panamanian President Jose Raul Molino issued a statement that was rejecting Trump's comments and said, quote, "The canal is and will continue to be Panama's, and its administration will continue to be under Panamanian control with respect to its permanent neutrality." Yeah, I don't think it's not very neutral, from what I understand. He said that there is no presence of any nation in the world that interferes with our administration. And he took issue with Trump's suggestion that the U.S. gave the canal to Panama. Well, we did. That's history, dude. Molino said dialogue is always the way to clarify the points mentioned without undermining our right, total sovereignty, and ownership of our canal. Yeah, we built it, dude. I think it's something like 38,000 Americans lost their lives building that thing, and we spent so much money into it. And the whole purpose of it, believe it or not, the entire purpose of the Panama Canal was to make it so that the American Navy could traverse without having to go around the Horn of South America, which is extremely dangerous and sometimes impassable. So, yeah. Anyway. Also, too, Mexico has reportedly rejected Trump's plans to implement Remain in Mexico, although I think he's already implemented it. He's already said we're reinstalling Remain in Mexico. But during a Monday morning conference, Juan Ramon de la Fuente, who is Mexico's Secretary for External Relations, said that if they reinstate it, meaning the U.S., this is something we don't agree with. We have a different focus. We want to adjust it. The desire is to keep the same policies as now. Of course, that's the desire. Of course, that's the desire. Yeah. Speaking of the Panama Canal, because of course mine are very fact-based, Pakarik over on Rumble says, I was watching a documentary and the Panamanian president keeps hiking the cost to go through the canal and is not willing to negotiate with any country. Yeah. So, and Woodens also points out that my father was stationed there during the Korean War and my brother was born there. Anyway, out of the three people that Trump called out during his inauguration, but 3 countries, I should say, that he called out during his inauguration address, China itself has appeared not to have commented publicly following the address. And by the way, his inauguration, Trump's inauguration, was attended by Chinese Vice President Han Zheng. So Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated Trump after he re-entered the White House, or on his way to re-entering the White House, and suggested that he may be open to peace talks with Ukraine. Putin said, according to a Reuters translation, quote, "We see the statements by the newly elected president of the United States and members of his team about the desire to restore direct contacts with Russia. We also hear his statement about the need to do everything possible to prevent World War III. We, of course, welcome this attitude and congratulate the elected president of the United States of America on taking office." Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky similarly issued his congratulations just ahead of the inauguration ceremony and said, "I congratulate President Trump and the American people on the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States. Today is a day of change and also a day of hope for the resolution of many problems, including global challenges. President Trump is always decisive, and peace through strength policy he announced provides an opportunity to strengthen American leadership and achieve a long-term and just peace, which is the top priority." Then we have, of course, our European allies. So NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte offered his warm congratulations in a post on X, saying, "President Trump back in office, we will turbocharge defense spending and production." European Union Chief Ursula von der Leyen also took to X. Gee, that's kind of interesting. X seems to be the platform that everybody uses. And said, "The international body looks forward to working closely with you to tackle global challenges. Today, our societies can achieve greater prosperity and strengthen their common security," she added. While many nations in Europe, including Norway, Sweden, Finland, Italy, Germany, and the United Kingdom, all congratulated Trump's inauguration, several leaders pronouncing that the U.S. is their closest ally, other nations were less willing to issue pronounced congratulations. French President Emmanuel Macron issued a note of warning when giving a speech to the French military on Monday. Macron mentioned that the Trump presidency was an opportunity for a European strategic wake-up call and highlighted scenarios that some have feared could affect European security. For an example, the lessening of the U.S. presence over there, military presence, if Washington opts to shift focus toward security concerns in Asia instead. Over in the Middle East, of course, just one day into the long-brokered ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posted a video message on X in which he congratulated Trump and said, "I believe that working together again, we will raise U.S.-Israel alliance to even greater heights." You'll recall during Trump's first term as president, he actually moved the embassy into Jerusalem. Benjamin Netanyahu finished with, "The best days of our alliance are yet to come." Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri also commented on the inauguration of the 47th president and said, "We are happy with the departure of Biden, who has the blood of Palestinians on his hands, reported Reuters. So, yeah. Anyway, he continued and said, "We hope for the end of this dark era that harmed the U.S. before anyone, and that Trump can build his policies on balanced foundations that can cut the road against Netanyahu's evils that want to drown the region and the world." Yeah, dude, I don't think that Trump's going to help you out. Let's just put it that way. It ain't going to happen. Well, speaking, by the way, of Macron made some statements or made some comments, and Trump, of course, coming into office and saying America first. Yeah. He basically told Europe to wake up and start spending more on defense in a speech that echoed previous warnings from President Donald Trump that NATO reliance on U.S. taxpayer dollars will no longer be tolerated. The AP reported that Macron urged Europe to accept responsibility for its own security, saying Trump's return to the White House is an opportunity for a European strategic wake-up call. Now, some people would look at that and they would think, okay, he's talking about, that America is backing away. No, what he is basically saying is it's time for us to take the reins of our own destiny. It's time for us to step forward. Okay. So the French leader's call came in his New Year's address on Monday to the military at the Army Digital and Cyber Support Command in Western France. He said, "What we will do in Europe tomorrow if our American ally withdraws its warships from the Mediterranean." Or sorry, what will we do? He's asking a question. He says, what will we do if they send their fighter jets from the Atlantic to the Pacific? Yeah. So anyway, Trump itself or himself has criticized the cost of the war in Ukraine being held mostly by U.S. taxpayers through our major military aid packages, and has made it clear that he wants to shift more of the fiscal burden back onto Europe, which is where it should be. Where it should be. Trump also challenged NATO members to raise defense spending to 5% of their overall economic output, GDP, that is how Breitbart News reported this. Now, that particular level, by the way, is a level that not one NATO member has actually reached it. Not even Poland, which is the closest. Poland currently spends over 4%, at least it did in 2024, and is expected to approach 5% this year of their gross domestic product. President Trump has vowed to bring the Ukraine-Russia conflict to a swift end, voicing hope that peace could be negotiated within 6 months. So, yeah, this is America First policies. Now, a lot of people would think, again, and I talked about this on the program, and let me see, who was it? There was somebody who mentioned it with regards to the Monroe Doctrine. Yeah, there we go. Jarhead 13 says, invoke the Monroe Doctrine. For those of you who don't recall, I covered it on this program. The Monroe Doctrine basically was, hey, America is going to protect America, the homeland, and it is going to protect America's interests elsewhere. Otherwise, we're not getting involved. So there you go. And this seems to be something that Trump is pushing toward. Is that? Well, here at home, we're still having our confirmation hearings and things of that that type of thing. So anyway, we have Elise Stefanik, who is Trump's pick to act as his America First representative to the United Nations. Well, she had her confirmation hearings. And some of the things that she said, of course, is going to make the UN kind of nervous. So as the U.S. ambassador, Stefanik said that she would significantly reform the UN from within. This is coming from an article in Town Hall. Okay. She also said that she promises to conduct a comprehensive budgetary assessment of certain UN sub-agencies and ensure that every dollar goes to supporting our American interests. She stressed that every U.S. taxpayer dollar pouring into the UN should go toward making America stronger, safer, and more prosperous. This cut down on waste fits squarely with the duties of Trump's new Department of Governmental Efficiency, she noted. So here's some of the comments during the hearing as posted on X by the Trump War Room. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
We should never tolerate any U.S. taxpayer funds going towards terrorism. As in my question with the ranking member, Shaheen, I was one of the members that voted to defund UNRWA. I was one of the leaders in standing for that important appropriations vote, which there is a bipartisan consensus on, with significant members, Republicans, as well as some Democrats who voted to defund it. I think we can look to organizations within the UN system, such as UNHCR, such as the World Food Program, working with USAID, which are proven organizations. They still need, reform efforts and modernization, but don't have the terrorist ties that UNRWA had, particularly that were exposed during the October 7th Hamas attack against Israel, whether it was Hamas's leader Sinwar carrying an UNRWA teacher's passport, or whether it was the UNRWA office above a Hamas data center, or individuals within UNRWA who participated in the terrorist attack against Israel on October 7th. So that I fully support the president's commitment to defunding, and I'm proud to have voted for that in the Congress.
Now, in particular, she is obviously calling out some of the anti-Semitism that exists within the UN for this. She also had some other comments with regards to this in terms of the UNRWA organization. Let's take a listen.
Because if you look at the anti-Semitic rot within the United Nations, there are more resolutions targeting Israel than any other country, any other crisis combined. And we have significant national security councils, the anti-Semitism, whether it's UN Women failing to condemn Hamas's terrorist attack and terrorist regime against innocent civilian women, using rape and targeting women, specifically taking them hostage. I am overjoyed that those 3 young women hostages were returned home. We need to stay committed to ensuring every hostage is brought home. I've met with many hostage families. This position, we need to be a voice of moral clarity on the UN Security Council and at the United Nations at large, for the world to hear the importance of standing with Israel. And I intend to do that. This year will mark the 50th year since the disgraceful Zionism is Racism resolution at the United Nations. And at the time, our U.S. Ambassador, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, spoke out strongly against that disgraceful resolution. That is the type of leadership that I hope to bring, if confirmed, to the United Nations. And President Trump has a tremendous record when it comes to standing with Israel, whether it's the Abraham Accords, whether it's his commitment to combating anti-Semitism, or recognizing Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel. This is a strong, strong record, and I hope to do that at the UN if confirmed.
So, the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel policies that have been going on over the last 4 years with regards to this, this is all moving forward. So Senator Jim Risch, who's from Idaho, the committee chair, suggested that the U.S. should seriously examine if further contributions and indeed participation in the UN is even beneficial to the American people. So, ranking minority member Senator Jean Shaheen agreed that the UN certainly is an imperfect body, but she did notice that it's also a force multiplier of taxpayer money. Yeah, no, it's not. She did make a comment. She says, U.S. disengagement is something that our adversaries want, especially Russia and China. When we cut back, they are ready and very eager to fill that void. So if Stefanik reaches Senate approval, she will be the first U.S. ambassador to come directly from Congress in over 2 decades. Because of her background, Stefanik said she has a thorough understanding of the legislative branch's oversight and appropriations role when it comes to enacting these reforms. She did say during questioning from Senator John Cornyn, who asked her if Stefanik thinks Diplomacy works without deterrence. As Iran attempts to build a nuclear arsenal, Stefanik responded that deterrence is necessary. It's our strongest way to ensure that we have peace. She declared, I am a deep believer in deterrence. Now, keep in mind, Stefanik served on the House Armed Services Committee and House Intelligence Committee when she was in Congress. She says, peace through strength is our strongest deterrence. So there you go. Here we go, folks. You know, Dan Bongino kind of talks about people are policy. And this is exactly the kind of people, you know, the left has been going after these folks over and over and over again. Well, that's because these people are enacting the policies, or they will be enacting the policies that Donald Trump ran on, was elected on, and what is needed at our federal government level. Now, Stefanik was critical of the UN. She said that the UN has not lived up to its founding mission of international peace and security. Moreover, she says, it strayed from advancing American values and instead put U.S. national security in jeopardy, she argued. Stefanik also revealed that she plans to reestablish U.S. leadership at the mismanaged institution by putting forward more American candidates for critical postings during the elections process. The reason why she stated that is because since 2018, the percentage of U.S. personnel compared to the total UN staffing has declined each year. China, on the opposite side of the house, has increased its employment with the UN by 85% between 2009 and 2021. So if you think that China's not our direct enemy or whatever, yeah, well, it's coming. Speaking of China, the China-run WHO. Do you remember how the WHO covered up for China? Was covering up during the COVID thing and was advancing the now debunked natural origin wet market theory that was out there for the Wuhan flu? Yeah. Well, the WHO, according to the Daily Fetched, the WHO begs Trump to reverse his executive order withdrawal after that executive order, of course, cuts off U.S. funding to the WHO. Now, the WHO is the World Health Organization, and they responded to President Trump's decision to withdraw the United States from that health organization, which is a UN health organization, urging him to reverse the executive order. But if the executive order stands, it's going to save the U.S. $500 million in spending year over year. Now, Trump has openly criticized the agency for its handling of COVID-19, which I just talked about. Also, he noted that China pays only a small fraction, just under $40 million compared to what the U.S. pays at $500 million. So the WHO, of course, serves as the United Nations Health Agency and is responsible for global public health. The WHO said it regrets Trump's executive order and defended its own work. Well, no kidding. So the WHO, in its statement, though, failed to address Trump's criticisms of it. It just basically talks about it a lot. So anyway, in 2020, Trump notified the UN about the proposed withdrawal due to the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic that arose out of Wuhan, China, and other global health crises, its failure to adopt urgently needed reforms, and its inability to demonstrate independence from the inappropriate political influence of the WHO member states. Trump made a comment that China, with a population of 1.4 billion, has 300% of the population of the United States, yet contributes nearly 90% less in money to the WHO. So, yeah. Anyway, once again, and now Trump is referring to that WHO situation. He's referring directly to the idea, of course, that it is unfair to the United States. And it absolutely is unfair to the United States, because we shouldn't be paying. They should be getting money from all of those other states, those other nation states that are out there that is not the U.S. The U.S. is the most prosperous country in the world, and we do have an obligation in some ways to be able to pay for our participation as a part of these organizations. But we do not have the obligation to foot the entire bill. Just like the rich don't have the obligation to foot the entire bill for the rest of us in taxes. So anyway, all right. Well, I've seen some people speaking of the WHO, the World Health Organization, COVID-19, the China Wuhan flu. There has been some conversation I've seen in the chat with regards to Anthony Fauci. Here's an article that came up. It seems a bit apropos. This is in the Blaze Media. Despite Biden's pardon, Anthony Fauci still faces some legal perils. So here's some of them, according to this article. The investigations, of course, are likely to continue. The pardon of Anthony Fauci may protect the former National Institutes of Health official from immediate criminal prosecution, but some critics are saying that he is not completely out of legal jeopardy and that public sentiment might still condemn the man, who became known during the COVID-19 pandemic as Mr. Science. Yeah, right. He is not Mr. Science. That's like Bill Nye the Science Guy, Bill Nye the mechanical engineer. Anyway, in the days before Biden offered the pardon, along with other critics of Donald Trump, some experts who have followed Fauci's career in handling of the pandemic, as well as members of the Trump transition team, reiterated their assertion that Fauci perjured himself on several occasions during the pandemic, especially regarding his agency's links to the lab in Wuhan, China, that may have created, it's not a may have, it did, created the virus that caused COVID-19. The pardon only addresses any COVID-related offenses, and it's backdated all the way to 2014, the year the U.S. ban on so-called gain-of-function virus research actually took effect. Fauci has been accused of outsourcing that research to China. Despite reporting that Trump is bent on revenge, which, of course, yeah, that's not going to happen. Former investigator Jason Foster, who now runs the whistleblower nonprofit Empower Oversight, says that Biden's pardon actually creates new legal jeopardy for Fauci. Senator Rand Paul has vowed to continue investigating COVID's origins, and sources tell Real Clear Investigations that Senator Ron Johnson and House Republican investigators plan to keep doing so as well. When testifying in those inquiries, I should say, or answering written depositions, Fauci will be unable to dodge questions by invoking his Fifth Amendment because of the pardon. Foster made a comment and said that if they can ask him if he lied before, replow some old ground, and if he lies about any prior lie, he can then be prosecuted for those lies or be held in contempt. So, yeah. Andrew Neumer mentioned and made a quote here saying, "I'm hopeful that he will now come clean about everything he knows about the origins of the virus. For the sake of public trust in science, explaining what killed 20 million people, that a complete account is much more important than speculation about what criminal penalties he may have avoided." Another advisor made a comment, these pardons will not stop the Department of Justice investigations. We expected this and look at it as a predicate to get truth from people who can no longer use the Fifth Amendment. Now we can bring every one of them in front of a grand jury. So I made a comment about this. I mentioned it when the thing came out. So, yeah. Anyway, the entire point being, of course, that now that they've been pardoned and they've accepted that pardon, they basically are at a risk to, since they can't be criminally prosecuted for their crimes, they also don't have to or can't take the Fifth Amendment anymore, because Fifth Amendment, of course, talks about incriminating yourself. You can't incriminate yourself when you've been pardoned for whatever crime that you have. So we'll just have to see what happens here. Some of the things that Fauci did was he claimed in an early 2022 interview that he never recommended lockdowns, but later said he recommended shutting the entire country down. That's just one example. Independent journalist Matt Orfalea circulated another set of clips that showed Fauci claiming that he kept an open mind about how the pandemic started, while alleging in others that the evidence pointed against a lab accident and strongly in favor of a natural spillover. His flip-flops generated quite the attention in Republican circles and on social media. He charged that such criticism was totally preposterous, adding that attacks on me, quite frankly, are attacks on science, which is a bunch of crap. So we are going to continue, it looks like, in all of this. Also, too, there's several other reports of him, emails talking about covering up the lab leak theory, different papers that have been coming out. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that Fauci is on the hook for here. So, yep. So here we go. We'll have to see what happens here. And of course, if he did lie on the stand, that does open him up to legal jeopardy as well, because the pardon, of course, is not going to cover him covering up those lies before. So, yeah. Anyway, Rand Paul, I don't think is going to give this up. He also, just like Hillary Clinton and even Joe Biden, hiding the use of private email for official communications, that's a no-no. And yeah, he made a claim that he, in a sworn statement to Congress, that he said, let me state for the record that to the best of my knowledge, I have never conducted official business via my personal email. Yeah. That also contradicted evidence in a 35-page memo compiled by Republican investigative staff that showed Fauci's second in command, Dr. David Morin, suggesting that someone speak with Fauci through an unofficial private channel. In another email, Morin also wrote that he would contact Fauci on Gmail. There's a lot of things going on here that could be a bit of a problem. I'd highly suggest you read this entire article, by the way, the one in the Blaze. It's in the show notes. The show notes are in the description of the videos on my outlets. And you can grab all of the links for everything there. By the way, also, the article itself in the Blaze was originally published by Real Clear Investigations and was made available by Real Clear Wire as well. All right, last thing. Donald Trump, in his inaugural address, mentioned and said that we were going to end government censorship, that he was going to end government censorship. And so he did that, of course, And now the Department of Homeland Security, sorry, Mary Poppins, whatever your name was, talking about disinformation, singing about it, actually. The DHS dismantles the Ministry of Truth advisory boards, this in hot air. The win came from the Department of Homeland Security, which is days away from getting newly appointed Secretary Kristi Noem installed. Word has reached the DHS that the new sheriff is in town anyway, and this one plans to put an end to government censorship via politicized fact checks. Acting DHS head has put an end to the last of the Ministry of Truth functions pushed by the Biden administration. Here, Donald Trump's acting Homeland Security chief has ordered the dismantling of all the department's advisory boards to guard against misuse of resources after the Biden administration's disastrous attempt to create a Big Brother-style disinformation governance board. This was in the Post. I think it's the Washington Post. Could be the New York Post, too. Didn't even think about it. But Nina Jankowicz, who is the singing moron, in a memo dispatched Monday evening, Benjamin Hoffman mandated the termination of all current memberships on advisory committees with the DHS effective immediately. Future committee activities will be focused solely on advancing our critical mission to protect the homeland and support DHS's strategic priorities, the memo went on. If you recall, Nina Jankowicz, Nina Jerkowitz, anyway, she was the hardest hit through that piece, and it was the New York Post, by the way. The New York Post continued and said, adding fuel to the firestorm as the fact that board's director Nina Jankowicz had repeatedly cast doubts on the Post's reporting about former first son Hunter Biden's laptop. Yes, you remember the 51 intelligence officers that had their security clearances revoked and or suspended, I guess I should say, and are potentially going to be under investigation moving forward. Yeah. Anyway, then DHS Secretary, this is the Post continuing, then DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas quietly discontinued the board weeks after it was announced, leaving Jankowicz to find other employment as the head of a nonprofit that as of April 2024 was insisting that Russia had interfered in our democracy during the 2016 election. So they're still going with Russia. Yeah. Speaking about that, I don't know if anybody saw, but Rachel Maddow had a meltdown over the whole rescinding of birthright citizenship. But anyway, I digress. So, yeah, they are getting rid of this, the whole DHS. So they're starting to, the whole government, of course, is starting to make movements to get rid of all of our government, non-governmental organization connections to eliminate censorship from the government in violation of the First Amendment, by the way. And don't forget that First Amendment violation court case, Missouri, and I think it's Louisiana, but anyway, the Missouri case is still ongoing. It's still ongoing. So there could be even more coming out about the entire affair and situation for this. So anyway. Let's see. What else do we have? Yeah, so one other thing I want to point out, the left, of course, is amping up its targeting of Trump folks. And for now, what they're doing is they're going after Elon Musk, and they're trying to paint Elon Musk as a Nazi after Elon Musk did what they call a Heil Hitler motion with his hand at the Trump inauguration. In fact, it went so far as Chris Murphy from Connecticut, complete moron, Senator Chris Murphy, went ahead and asked Elise Stefanik about it. And Elise Stefanik did what is essentially the proper way of what you do with these people, is you just basically dismiss the entire premise for the question. Okay? That you just dismiss it out of hand. I mean, Elise Stefanik was saying, well, I've only met Elon Musk a few times, and I wasn't actually at the inauguration, but, I don't think that Elon Musk is a Nazi. So, there you go. There you go. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, Tommy asks, I missed this. Wow. Where is it? Here we go. Tommy asks, does the Blaze thing require a subscription or payment? No, not that I've seen, although I get it through an aggregate feed. So if there's a connection there, I don't believe so. I don't believe it does, but I try and not use things that are behind a paywall, that I hit a paywall on, just because of the fact that I want you guys to be able to actually see and read the same articles that I am. Because that's just the way that I go. Also, too, really quick, Chuck Schumer and several other leftist morons in the Democrat Party have all been caught on tape for saying clearly back in 2017, 2018, 2019, during the first Trump term, that preemptive pardons were a gross abuse of power. I don't hear those same people talking about the same things with Biden and his preemptive pardons, especially Schiff, who took the pardon. So, anyway. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get on with tonight's pet of the week. All right, tonight's pet of the week is provided by a new submitter. This new submitter is becoming a regular on Facebook. I've seen him quite a few times come on over. Mark Wetzel. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Wetzel. But Mark over on Facebook has a backstory with regards to this pet. So let me go ahead and head on over there and get the pet up. We have a video. Also, too, we have a video to watch as well, a short video. Let's see where. Image. There's the little pupper. So there's the little pupper. So here's the backstory about this little pup. As a fellow veteran, I owe a great deal of gratitude toward this little girl, Roxy, simply because she actually saved my life twice. The first time, or saved my life twice. There you go. The first time was the day I got her, for I was and had been in a very dark place for quite a while, which, yeah, a lot of veterans do, unfortunately, go that way. He continues on and says, the second time was in the very early morning hours of 8/17/2017 at 3:30 a.m. Well, that is that's very, very accurate. By the way, Mark, oh, I did get it. Good. Mark, Bonnie over on Rumble says, thank you, Mark, for your service. And yes, that is absolutely true. Thank you for your service. So this is a very, very accurate time frame, and I would imagine that the reason is because of the fact that you recall this event first is that it's the day after your birthday, and the second you state here was that you had a massive heart attack in your sleep on that day. So Roxy is a great companion and friend for Mark for 15 years. Strangely, his mother passed away on May 15th of 2022, and on May 30th of 2023, Roxy passed. Oh, so Roxy is no longer with you. But Roxy passed, and May 30th of 2023 happened to be his mother's birthday. That's so sad. That is so sad. But we have a short little video here, about a 24-second video. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let me get rid of Roxy's photo and bring up, where is it? There we go. I was running behind here and didn't get everything put up. But anyway, so here we go. This is a little video provided by Mark Wetzel of Roxy.
That's a good girl. Wipe your feet. Wipe your feet.
Okay, so I got to ask a question, Mark. I got to ask a question. Who's the white dog? Who's the little white dog that's there as well with Roxy? Now, Roxy, obviously, as you noticed, Roxy cleaned her feet. I wish I could. Oh, my gosh, I wish I could teach my dog that. I live on a large piece of property that my pup tends to come in with muddy paws, especially after it's like poured for days on end. But anyway, who is the little white one? Mark, I'm waiting over there. Okay. Mark says that Roxy always wiped her feet. Whoops. Always wiped her feet. And the little white and brown dog is called Gidget. So, Bonnie was like, how do you teach the dog to wipe its feet? I think that might be might have been a natural occurrence. So, but anyway, well, I'm sorry that Roxy is no longer with you, but apparently she had several good years with you. And, obviously she made a big impression upon you, for saving your life, not only once, but twice. As far as that goes. So she will be there. She will be there. Oh, hey, Amy and you should trade. Mark says, I trained a lot of dogs over the years, so maybe you and Amy need to get together. Amy over on Rumble is a dog trainer and does eventing and stuff. You may have seen her dogs. She's got some fantastic Teruvian pups, beautiful animals, doing all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so there you go. So that is tonight's pet of the week. Folks, I don't have a pet of the week for next week. So guess what? You got to send them to me. If you have one available, head it on over. All you need to do is like pictures. You don't necessarily have to do videos, but hey, like you see tonight, I went ahead and played it. You can do pictures and a story and tell me about your pet. Obviously the particulars, name, breed, things like that, and a nice little story to go along with it is cool. If you don't really have much of a story and you want to give me artistic license to go ahead and make one up, I have been known to do that a few times. But anyway, so where you're going to send that is, of course, the same place that you would send the pledge off to, and that is fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And so there you go. And by the way, thank you again, like I said, Mark, for submitting Roxy and sharing her with us. And, of course, the details. So that is That is fantastic. Also, too, don't forget, I do have a question of the week segment that comes up Saturday, and I, as far as I know, do not have a question for this week. So do me a favor, if you want, send that one off to fans@americanperspective.online there as well. Yeah, speaking of Landon, Bonnie, Rick would be able to tell stories about Landon. Speaking of Landon, here, boy. There you go. All right, folks, that is it for me for tonight. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. Once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you find or search up the American Perspective channel. Hit that green follow button so you're notified every time I go live. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.